apartment that was bugged by the FBI that actually got John Gotti and Sammy the Bull and Frankie Loke. That's where the FBI put the bug in. So that's a famous landmark. I know after some hits, people went there and were congratulated. That's a famous tape also when Carmen Gigante got killed in Lucy's in the restaurant. The hitman, Anthony Bruno, and them went to the Ravenite. The Ravenite, Marlon Brando was in there when he was filming The Godfather. Anthony Quinn was in there when he was filming the Gotti movie. I actually got arrested up the street from the Ravenite. So that's why the Ravenite brings up a lot of stuff for me. My name's Anthony Ruggiano Jr., and I was a proposed member of the Gambino family. And I was also the son of Anthony Fat Andy Ruggiano, who became a made member of the Gambino family in 1953 under the tutelage of Albert Anastasia. And tonight we're going to talk about a famous social club on Mulberry Street called the Ravenite. It became really famous when John Gotti took it over, but we're going to talk about the beginnings of it and how it winded up in John Gotti's hands. It was a notorious mafia hangout, like I said, in Manhattan. Original owner was Arnel Della Croce. He became the underboss of the Gambino family. But when he opened that up, he was just a soldier, and he opened it up literally right across the street from where he lived on Mulberry Street, because not only is the Ravenite a landmark, mafia landmark, directly across the street from the Ravenite is a building, a tenement building, where he actually lived with his wife and his son Buddy. And after he split up with his wife and moved in with another woman in Staten Island, his son Buddy, who was a very dear friend of mine, and Buddy's mother still lived in that building. And he would frequent that building. So that's another famous building. And also, people neglect and forget that the apartment on top of the Ravenite is the apartment that was bugged by the FBI that actually got John Gotti and Sammy the Bull and Frankie Loke. That's where the FBI put the bug in. So that's a famous landmark, not only because of the Ravenite, but because Neil lived across the street and because of the apartment upstairs of the Ravenite. And I'll explain to you how they used to go up to that apartment. So to my understanding, the Ravenite was probably opened, I would say, in the 40s, somewhere in the 40s. Of course, my father started hanging out there in the 50s, the early 50s, very early 50s, in the beginning of the 50s. Like I said, it was frequented by a lot of wise guys. Albert Anastasia would go there. It was Neil's club. All it was a storefront. It was just a big window and it had the Ravenite on it. It was blacked out, half black. It was very old-fashioned inside. I went there for the first time, I would say, in around probably 1970, 71-ish was the first time I went. I remember walking in there for the first time. It was very old school, a lot of, it wasn't always crowded. And my father always went there on a Wednesday and a Saturday for years and years and years and years. Those were the 2 days my father went to the Ravenite, on a Wednesday and a Saturday. And I started going to them on a Wednesday and Saturday. And it was just a social club, but a lot of things went on in there. So you would walk in, and on the left was a bar. On the right was tables, and you would walk in, you would always see these old wise guys. They'll be sitting at the tables playing gin, a lot of card playing going on, a lot of sports on the TV, betting sports. But it was a lot of gambling going on, but not for money. It wasn't like a club where they gambled money against each other. They gambled for numbers. So what I mean by that is, so they would be playing gin here or solitaire, but in the back of the Ravenite, there was a big round table, and that's where our nail stood in the back. And they went there, and they always played pinochle back there, and they played pinochle for numbers. The losing team would play numbers. The guy Mike, who ran the place for Neil, he was the number runner, and they would play for $50 numbers. So if you hit a $50 number, you win 25,000. It was 500 to 1. So they would play for numbers. The losing team would put up the money and pick a number, and they would play for numbers. And it was very festive. Christmas Eve, there was always a big spread. A lot of people went there on Christmas Eve. And there was always a lot of criminal activity going on as far as conversations in the back. People would come to see Neil, and they would go in the back and huddle. They would walk outside, walk and talks outside. My father would have sit-downs in there. They would have sit-downs in there in the back room, in the back of the table. They would have sit-downs back there. A lot of money exchanged hands in there. I'm sure a lot of people lives ended, not in there, but conversations where they talked about ending people's lives took place in there. I know after some hits, people went there and were congratulated. That's a famous tape also when Carmen Gigante got killed in Lucy's in the restaurant. The hitman, Anthony Bruno, and them went to the Ravenite because Neil and all of them were in on that. John Gotti and all of them were in on that hit. So a lot of famous stuff went down in that club, and I spent a lot of Wednesdays and a lot of Saturdays there. I have some memorable memories of that place. When I went to jail in 1978, my father had my going away party at the Ravenite, which was, like very festive. It was like I was going off to college. We had a party in there. Christmas Eve was always festive, not that they were all religious and they were celebrating the birth of Christ, but, it was, I guess, more traditional, everybody kissing each other, Merry Christmas, a lot of envelopes exchanging. But like I said, it was a lot of criminal activity, a lot of serious people hung out in there, a lot of serious people frequented in there, came in and out of there. I never saw Carlo Gambino in there, and I never saw Paul Castellano in there. They had a club in Brooklyn with Jimmy Brown that they frequented. This was strictly Neil's club, but I saw a lot of captains coming in there, famous captains, Joe Piney, Ray DeMeo used to come in there a lot of times. This guy, Greg De Palma, came in there once in the 71 and, gave Neil tickets for Sinatra, and Neil gave me 2 of the tickets to see Frank Sinatra. So there was always a lot of talk in there, and celebrities. People are always interested in celebrities, and yes, celebrities did go into the Ravenite. A matter of fact, when they were filming The Godfather, they went in there, and also when they were filming the movie about Gotti, Anthony Quinn used to go in there and hang out and talk to the people. And Anthony Quinn played Neil in the movie. If people remember the movie with Armin Asante, so movie stars did frequent the Ravenite. Marlon Brando was in there when he was filming The Godfather. Anthony Quinn was in there when he was filming the Gotti movie. This guy Clem, who was an actor, was always in there with, he was good friends with De Niro. He was always in the Ravenite. So yeah, actors always frequented the Ravenite. So it was big time, and so Neil had it all those years, and then Neil got sick. He had stomach cancer, unfortunately, and he passed away. And I have fond memories of it. Not to jump all over the place, but I have fond memories of when I got out of prison in '80. The second day I was home, I went there to see everybody. I went to the Ravenite, and everybody greeted me. I got out of the car, walked up the block. John Gotti was standing outside. He hugged me and kissed me because I just got home the day before, and I went to the Ravenite to pay my respects to everybody. So I have a lot of fond memories of the Ravenite. Moving forward, when Neil died and John Gotti became the boss, John took over the Ravenite. It became John Gotti's spot in Manhattan, and he changed the face of the Ravenite. What he did was he bricked up the front of it, and there was a little brick window he made because it was old school, like I said, and it was a storefront window, and he took that all out. He bricked up the wall, and he could have done whatever he wanted because Joe the Cat, who was a soldier in the Gambino family, he owned the building, and he owned the building next door. So they had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted with the building because Joe the Cat owned the building. So he did that. He bricked up the front. He made a little square window so you couldn't really see in. and he fixed up the inside. He sort of like almost gutted it out, I would say. He painted it, and he hung like pictures up and portraits up of him and Neil in the back, and he bought new tables, and he spruced it up a lot. But what happened was, for me, now it was standing room only in there. Now John had it. He was the boss, very flamboyant, movie star reputation, and everybody wanted to be up his ass, and you couldn't get in the door. It was like mobbed. It was mobbed up, packed with people that never went there when Neil had it. I mean, you couldn't even. It was crazy. It was like you couldn't move in the place. That's how crowded it was. And I really didn't go there as often as I did when Neil had it, because I used to see John in Queens, and he held court on Saturdays, so I would see him on Saturdays in the Bergen Fish Club, which is another interesting spot. We'll talk about it at another time, the Bergen Fish Club. So I sort of not stopped going completely, but I didn't go as frequent as I did. But it was still a lot of surveillance. The FBI were always across the street filming. A lot of stuff still going on. Now there was drug deals being made in there. Nobody ever did drugs in there. I never snorted any coke in there. His buddy, none of us did it. And everybody was blowing coke, but we never did it in the Ravenite. We drank. We drank wine. We drank Sambuca in our espresso. A lot of Sambuca in the espresso in the Ravenite. We drank a lot of coffee in the Ravenite. I left there a couple of holidays lit up, on booze, especially Christmas Eve. I don't remember ever leaving there sober on a Christmas Eve. That I don't remember. And I always remember we were the last ones to leave on Christmas Eve, because Neil used to go across the street and to see his wife and his son, and then he would come back, and we would still be in the Ravenite drinking, and he would tell my father, Andy, you think it's time to go now? Because we were always the last ones to leave. And so it just changed a little when John took it over. It got real crowded, but it was always a famous spot. It was always, that's where they held court, and everybody went there. Everybody went there. It was definitely a mob landmark. Unfortunately, now it's gone. Now it's I think it's a shoe store or something, some kind of boutique. But if the walls could talk, I mean, oh my God, the stories that it would tell. So people want to know if there was girls allowed. They were not allowed. I mean, I don't remember girls coming in there outside of when the feast was on. So what happened was the St. Gennaro feast used to end a block away from the Ravenite. It never came down as far as the Ravenite. And then Neil wanted his block to be part of the feast. So he sat down and he made them extend the St. Gennaro feast to the block of the Ravenite. And I actually had a stand there, I had a game there. That became our block. So yeah, when the feast was on, we would bring girls there. We would sit outside, have coffee. They would set up tables outside in the street, and yeah. But girls never hung out in there. No, it was mostly men. I don't really remember women. Never remember women hanging out in there. But they were allowed in there. But they really didn't come in there. I mean, and when we used to go there on Saturday nights, we never met our wives there or our girlfriends there. We would always meet them in the restaurant we were going to have dinner in. So the routine was for a lot of people that went to the Ravenite during the day, mid-afternoon, get to the Ravenite, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, stay there till 6, 7, and then we'd go to Peter Luger's, which was right across the bridge, or we'd go to a restaurant in Manhattan, an Italian restaurant on Mulberry Street, and our wives and girlfriends would meet us at the restaurants. That we never made them meet us out at the Ravenite. I actually got arrested up the street from the Ravenite. So that's why the Ravenite brings up a lot of stuff for me, because in 1974, I was working in a number office that was on Mulberry Street. And it was a Monday night. It was George Washington's birthday. I'll never forget. It was Monday night, George Washington's birthday. And my father was taking us to Peter Luger's. But he had to go to the Ravenite. It was a rare Monday where he had to go to the Ravenite for a sit down. It was a rare occasion that it wasn't a Wednesday or a Saturday. It was a Monday. So we go to the Ravenite, and the number office was 2 blocks up on Mulberry Street. So we're in the Ravenite, and before we went to Peter Luger's, I told my father, listen, I got to run up to the office and I got to do some work and then I'll come back and we'll go to Peter Luger's. He goes, all right, good, go. So I went to the office and I never made it to Peter Luger's because the number office got raided. And that was the first time I was actually, my name was, I have the article on my phone. That's the first time my name was ever in the newspaper because they made a big splash about that because I got arrested on Mulberry Street, so they made a big thing about it. Imus in the Morning, for people, old timers that remember who that was, he was a big DJ on radio back then, Imus in the Morning. He had like a huge following across the country. He did a special on me. He said they couldn't get the whale, who was my father, so they got the fish, who was me. That was his headline. They couldn't get the whale, so they got the fish. Me. I was a little fish. And so, yeah, the Ravenite just kicks up a lot of shit. Listen, the place was always under surveillance. There was always a lot of people in there. Were murders discussed in there? Definitely. My father asked for permission to kill somebody in there. Definitely was discussed in there, but was there ever an actual murder committed in there? Not to my knowledge. I'm not saying no, but not to my knowledge. But were murders discussed in there? Were murders okayed in there? Yes, definitely. That's for sure. Neil had just died. I don't know if they met in the Ravenite. I know, which is going to come out on the show with Sammy. We discussed that, because he was in on the planning of that, and he never mentioned to me that they discussed it in the Ravenite. I'm sure there was discussions around outside the Ravenite meetings, but I don't know if they actually put the plan in place at the Ravenite, but I'm sure there was discussions there. Was when John became the boss, and he beat them cases, that the FBI bugged the Ravenite. And what happened was they would listen and then he would be in the Ravenite and then they would lose him for an hour and they couldn't figure out where he went. So when you walked into the Ravenite, when you walked in all the way in the back by the table that O'Neill stood in, there was a bathroom and a door. If you opened up the door, it went into the hallway to the building. And then you walked in the door and you made a left and there was a staircase going up to the second floor, which you couldn't see from the street. So you didn't know there was this door. You couldn't see it from the street from either the front entrance of the building or from the Ravenite. You couldn't see it. So you wouldn't know about it. So John would go out that door and up the stairs to Mike's, this old man Mike, who had died then. He was a wise guy. My D was a good guy, a good friend of ours, really nice guy, a nice old man. He loved me. And his wife still lived up there. And John would go up there, and a confidential informant that was hanging out at the Ravenite told them that John was going upstairs to the apartment. And that's how the FBI found out. John went upstairs and they put the bug in the lamp, and we all know what happened after that. And that was the beginning of the end for John. So yeah, that's how he used to get upstairs. I even went out that door upstairs a few times. I was in that apartment. When my D was alive, I would run up there with him, and stuff, because he treated me good. So yeah, that's how and that's where he used to go up the stairs.